Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast, The Art of Beyond the Algorithm. Today is 2nd of October 2025 at 5 p.m. Irish time. I'm with you with another very interesting guest, Dr. Amir Feizpour. We have him. He's founder, CEO, and chief scientist of uh, Aggregate Intellect. He has a very interesting and broad career. Uh, I hope you will enjoy this episode. Stay with us. We are going to discuss a lot of interesting topics. Amijan, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. Please introduce yourself.
Of course, I'm happy to be here and talk with you. I think we've done this a few times now, and it's going to be fun to catch up and talk about what's going on.
Of course, yeah, as you said in another podcast, you have been also my guest. It has been really comprehensive digging into your career, and it was a lot of lesson we learned from that. So I cannot recommend you to watch that episode. I put it in the description of the video. If you can understand Persian, of course, you can use it and you will enjoy that. I think nowadays YouTube also has added a lot of LLM features to the videos, so
Right,
it
right.
shouldn't be that difficult to switch on Persian captions, or English captions, Persian to English, so you'll enjoy that. I know your career because in other podcasts, as I said, I have gone through it. But if you want to quickly tell us how you got to this point, I mean, how you got to be an entrepreneur in the field of AI and nowadays LLM.
Yeah, definitely. So the long story short of it is that I'm trained as a physicist. So I that was my academic career. I I was born in Iran, and I did my undergrad and master's there, and then went to Canada to do a PhD in physics. And sort of like all along, the imagination was the objective was faculty positions and such. Um, and I went all the way like to PhD, and dad was a bit of a pivoting here and there. Like at first I was a theorist, and I became an experimentalist. After PhD, I had some thoughts about, do I want to continue that, or do I want to do something different? And I ended up deciding to, take an opportunity that I had to work at University of Oxford as a postdoc. So did that for a couple of years, but in the middle of that, it was very clear for me that I didn't want to stay in academia anymore, and decided to switch to industry. So the very first attempt at that was trying to commercialize one of my patents, and um, that did not work very well. It was in quantum computing space about 10 years ago. There was even less market for that. Then I decided that the next best thing was AI. So in 2015 or so, I started teaching myself AI, and in 2016, I started applying for jobs, and at the end of 2016, I got an offer and formally started working as a data scientist at the beginning of 2017. From the very beginning, I was very excited about natural language processing, the ability to apply AI on documents. I think partly because it was so alien to me. Like, in my physics career, I always dealt with data analysis, and even like image analysis. We used to do that quite a bit in our work as experimentalists. But being able to do computation on language was quite interesting for me. So from the very beginning of my AI career, I was very specifically interested in that side of AI. And I worked as a corporate person for a few years. Never really clicked for me. Like just being a corporate employee wasn't particularly exciting for me. So I sort of started building a community outside of work with like-minded people, get together, eat pizza, and talk about AI. And that community still exists, more than 6,000 people globally. And out of that came the company that I incorporated in 2019, initially with focus on education. Then we evolved into a product company. Then after ChatGPT, we dropped the product ambitions and started doing service mostly because we were in a survival mode. Um, and most recently, and this might be a bit of a reveal, but most recently we are starting to put formally some plans to relaunch as a venture studio. So hopefully in the next year or so, you will hear more from me about what aggregate intellect is becoming.
Wow, fascinating. Yes, definitely in a year. I hope we can meet you again in the podcast to ask you how has it gone. It is, as far as I can see, there are a lot of meta level skills in what you have done. So, I mean, a lot of people are struggling in science, and that's really pity that a lot of scientists they need to move to AI because in terms of job opportunity, etc. But I guess AI also should be involved in a lot of science and so on and so forth. And also after that, moving from corporate jobs, etc., facing with insecurities, it shouldn't be easy to start a company. I mean, would you like to talk about those kind of meta level skills people need to go through that shifts and pivots in their career?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, of course, like I acknowledge that I had a lot of, luxury of being able to move around. Like, some people might have family responsibilities or something else that prevents them from, making the crazy decisions that I made. Um, but, at least for me, I had the opportunity to do that. And sort of the mindset or maybe personality quirk of getting bored very quickly and constantly looking for something more interesting to do. um, but the skills are like, I think the very first important meta skill is the ability to take a step back and understand what is it about something that you're doing that you enjoy. For example, when I was transitioning from physics to AI, that reflection was taking a step back and understanding that, okay, what I'm really enjoying is the problem solving that I'm doing in physics, right? So can I grab that and take it somewhere else and fix a problem that, well, I can't make a lot of money in physics, but I can probably do problem solving and make a lot of money elsewhere, right? So the aspect of physics for me that was exciting was that, very difficult problems that we were working on and, trying to solve those. That was enjoyable. The fact that I didn't have an opportunity to make a lot of money was not. So, how can I, drop the part that is not working for me and take the part that is working for me and take it elsewhere, uh, and put it in a setting that hopefully will be better. And that's an optimization that constantly happens. Then after that, I probably learned that, okay, it's not quite the money that is driving me because I was getting very well paid in my corporate job, but still something wasn't working. So again, doing the same reflection: what about it is it working? What about it is it not? And it's a constant, like, a decade later now, I'm still, as I literally just said, I'm trying to relaunch my business as a venture studio because I'm still searching for that answer of the question of, okay, what are the components that work? What are the components that don't work? And how do I rearrange all of these so that I feel more fulfilled, more purposeful, more satisfied with the hours of days that I have left in my life.
Wow, that's really very important. As far as I can see, it's not like something you get it. That's something along the way you need to improve it. You need to work on it. You need to be ready to, uh, welcome actually to a lot of these insecurities. And it's not something you zero and one. I mean, it is something you do in parallel, perhaps. But perhaps people who are working in corporate, they can start doing some stuff in parallel to
Absolutely.
test.
Right, absolutely. And the reason that I brought up the constraints is exactly that, because I made a set of decisions, and I don't think what I'm trying to say is that others should do that. Everybody has to figure out how to do this optimization that I'm trying to do within their constraints. Somebody who has family responsibility, big mortgage to pay, etc., might make a different set of decisions that still like are following the same optimization, which is, okay, there's a reflection. I don't like these components, I like these ones. How can I move them around within my constraints to be able? And I think really what I'm still trying to teach myself is that a lot of this is driven by curiosity. Like a lot of this is just not being satisfied by status quo, but a given set of to-do list, a checklist that is given to you, and just being curious and getting out there and figuring out, okay, I'm okay with taking a small risk in favor of potentially finding something that will be more attractive, right? And of course, taking risk is risky, but the upside could be large. And as I'm getting older and older, I'm learning how to hedge my bets in a way that I'm essentially making more calculated risks instead of a risk that is completely unfounded. So it's just that process of understanding your constraints, understanding your limitations, but also not allowing those to cage you in. Just be able to take a peek out, take one step out, and keep doing that every day until you find something that is a little more consistent with hopefully your happiness.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So uh, that's the way actually we as scientists and engineers normally look at life, even the life itself as an optimization problem with the constraints. And that's what I have learned, as you said, along the way in my life, that you need to simplify the problem. You need to get rid of redundant constraints because sometimes you make it more complicated and it makes it much more difficult. At the same time, I remember some conversation that I have had with one of the founders of the startup that I was working with in 2015, and David was telling me always, "Reza, if you want to do something, do it now." And I was like, "Oh, it is really difficult. How about the financial situation? How about this and that?" And he was like, "Come on, don't think about those. If you want to do something, let's do it." And as soon as you start flying, you learn how to do that. Look at the birds, actually, the chicks, for the first time they want to do
Yeah.
that. That's really difficult. But that's what stops people from doing. Anyway, very interesting conversation. We can continue that for hours, but we don't have time for that because in comparison to other podcasts that I normally go 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, here I want to limit myself to 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes. The next question which make me to think about and ask you is about, you said you want to shift from service to VC world. Does that mean service is not good thing? If you are someone in AI to want to start a business, or maybe VC is a better word, or maybe it matches more best
Yeah.
better with you.
Um, well, there's no value judgment in what I'm trying to do. Like it's mostly a personality. Like it is that I think that fits my personality better and the stage that I'm in my life. And also to be clear, I'm not interested in becoming a venture capitalist. I'm interested in becoming a venture studio.
Uh-huh.
And the difference is that in a venture studio, you're very hands-on, and you build and incubate companies very, very directly. Like you essentially co-found a lot of companies if you wish. And that's what I'm interested in. Like as a VC, sorry, as a venture studio, you potentially also invest in some of these companies, and that's eventually where we want to get to. But what is attractive about it for me is that you get to co-found multiple companies as a business, and hopefully have uh, an opportunity to share an upside with them. The way this relates to what we are currently doing, like the service business that we have, is that the service business allows us to very closely see a lot of different types of problems that people are trying to solve, because they're hiring us to help them with them, right? So we can see, and we're always formulating hypotheses about best opportunities and use cases for AI and where AI is going, not where AI is today. So we are always trying to do research on where AI is going, try to project where the market will be in a year, 2 years from now, and also use the service work that we are doing to understand, okay, where are people's heads at right now, like what kind of problems are they trying to solve, and just bring all of this together to make bets on, okay, if we incubate a business that does ABC, it will be able to exit in 3 years at this value, etc., etc. So that's what is attractive for me. I think service businesses are great. I think product AI product businesses are probably more risky, honestly, right now than service businesses, because they're making a lot of bets on products that are easy to build but very difficult to validate. And a lot of people are getting the dopamine hit of, oh my God, I told my co-pilot to build this and he did it in 2 hours. And then, they struggle for years to even get any customer traction. So service sort of shortcuts that problem, because you can very directly see what's going on and who's willing to pay today, rather than building something for half a year and then not going anywhere with it. So I think ultimately we are probably also, like, a lot of people are also talking about SaaS is dead. I'm not sure how correct that is, uh, but I think, combination of service and product is the right choice for me, because I can provide my skills, my experience of making all types of go-to-market strategy mistakes, and help, founders bring their ideas to the table, to the world, and also, combine this service aspect of what we are doing now in essentially in service of, bringing actual products, very niche products, to the market. Can talk more about, what I think is the right thesis there, but that's essentially the story.
which could be updated along the way, definitely. But that's very interesting combination. I mean, as you refer to a very interesting point, that doing the service business will allow you to talk to people to the valid problems. I mean, because if you want to do something as a startup, as a product, you need first of all understand if it is a valid problem. But if someone comes to you to do that for us, and if more people on that specific field are coming to you, that means that's more serious problem, and that
That's
means
right.
worth doing something as a product. So a couple of questions here. First of all, we are living in an era that it is talked about one person startup would be the situation. So would it be a positive advantages for that venture studio running companies and products, or would it be a disadvantage for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we would like it to be an AI first venture studio, obviously, because, traditionally or historically, you're very interested in using AI for knowledge management, specifically in innovation. A lot of what we are building as the foundation in this venture studio is how AI can be used to help founders address a few different problems. One is, help them execute, right? Like just the product development side. Like, are these the right features? Can we build them very quickly? That's the obvious part. The second part is the go-to-market strategy part. Can we set up AI tools in a way that helps them think about and strategize and execute and iterate on their go-to-market strategy? But I think there is a third part that is very important and often um, not discussed as much. And in my own experience uh, as a founder, it has been the biggest unlock for me is the mental framework and the mindset. And how can we use AI to help founders get over mental blocks that they have? After 7 years of running a business, I still struggle with sales, right? Like, I'm not a business person, I'm a technical person. I'm still wrapping my head around sales. And I use AI extensively to probe the mental blocks and fears and insecurities that I have. So I have set up a bunch of different AI coach workflows that challenge my assumptions, challenge my fears, help me reframe. So can we start packaging those in a way that the founders that we're going to support can help to get over? Because that's where things fall apart. The technical feasibility is so easy to do today. The go-to-market and validation is the harder part. But I think the deal breaker usually is where the founder can't get over the insecurities they have about how they should run a business. So if we can combine all of these three together, then we might have something interesting that is AI first. It is all about, and I'm not, super, necessarily like chasing like a one-person business, but it could be a very small team, but powered by these tools that allows them to go much farther than it was possible even 2 years ago.
Very interesting. So the interesting part is still AI has not solved the business problem.
Definitely.
It Yeah, it has solved the development process, and nowadays with vibe coding and
Yes.
stuffs like that, that's insane. I was looking at some news. A lady from Brazil, I'm not sure if you have heard that. I don't remember the name. She has had a lot of, like, she was working in corporate for a long
Yeah.
time, and she had an idea, and then over 45 days, she actually started developing a product using vibe coding.
Yeah.
And that's like checking background check. I mean, in terms of for ladies, if they feel insecurity.
Mm.
And in 45 days, they have made 500,000
Wow. Yeah.
out of that business. So that's insane. And as you said, first of all, you need to have that capability in the people. So what would be the plan, do you think? We are going somewhere else because the topic is really interesting.
Yeah.
I promise you will wrap it up very quickly and come back to the rate. But the question is, what do you think would be the plan for you? You post it as a job and bring people on board, or you will run incubation programs, etc. People will apply. What do you think would work the
Yeah.
best?
So our immediate plan is to incubate three businesses, and we have one of those uh, in process right now, like it is in production and it's been tested, and we are gonna hopefully reveal it soon. The second one we just started on, and hopefully we will have more to say about it, in the new year. The third one, we are still looking for it. Like there are a bunch of different irons in the fire that we are testing and trying to figure out where the third one would make sense. Generally speaking, we are very interested as a thesis for the venture studio in building AI agent tools that help complex sales in more traditional businesses. So we are not super excited about very sexy areas like, I don't know, medical or legal or finance that everybody seems to be building tools for. We are very specifically interested in, you're a traditional business, your sales process is very complex and potentially bottlenecked by the bottom of the funnel. How can AI agents help you? Can we build something custom for that niche and then take it to market as a product? So we have two of these ongoing. The third one hopefully will be found at some point. But the hope is that once we have three revenue generating businesses, then hopefully we start raising money for them, for those three specifically. And once, hopefully, if that's successful, then we will raise a fund and start investing in other ideas. The way we are attracting ideas right now is a bunch of ideas are coming out of our service work. Obviously, as we discussed, I run a boot camp, and sometimes if I see an interesting idea that one of the students is pursuing, I always approach them and say, "Hey, would you be interested in exploring this together?" And there are a couple of ideas that I'm pursuing like that, and just general social media activities that I do always attracts curious people, and I have discussions with them. But generally speaking, is go to market de-risking first, which means let's go find a customer that is interested in this before we write one line of code, because writing the code is the easy part.
Very interesting. What I can see is it is not possible to go through that in solo. I mean, as far as I can see, there are elements there. So you have the community. There are a lot of things happening there in terms of people interactions, in terms of
Yes.
webinars, and so on and so forth. The service part will gives you a lot of interesting ideas for doing that. The course idea that you are doing, I guess you have run it for several years now. I've
For
seen
about a
from
year
the
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen in the Meven page. I will put it in the description anyway. That's one of the interesting courses if you are interested in taking
Yep.
how to develop and build like multi-agent solutions, etc. I really recommend it. So, so the course, the community, the service all together, going to people, inviting them to, sometimes you need to mentor them. That's very interesting combination of different things. And also it reminds me something from Australian serial entrepreneur Dan Norris. He
Mhm.
says successful entrepreneurs is not going to generate new ideas. They look at the current solutions where the solutions doesn't work well, and they try to come with innovative,
Yes.
better solutions. And you may think like Okay, everything is solved.
Yep.
How to find the solution? What he says, if you look at bulbs, you see last 15 years a lot of variations of them came to market. Something comes, works for a few years, it doesn't work anymore, you need to have a new solution. And that's really insane problem, as you said. Is there are interesting. It starts from micro SaaS even to big SaaS and so on and so forth. People may solve a small problems. Do you
Yep.
have any recommendation of doing some, so for people who are working full time, doing some micro SaaS to test themselves to?
Yeah. I mean that's my go-to advice, that you have to be very honest about your constraints.
Uh-huh.
And I think you and I also talked about identity diversification.
Yeah.
And one part of identity diversification for me is, like, for example, I have this AMA where people book me to get career advice, and whenever somebody books me to say I'm considering leaving my corporate job to start a company, usually my advice is, can you do something on the side first, right? Because you get to practice a lot. Like, it could be a tiny thing, it could be, I don't know, a course, it could be writing a book and selling it, it could be a small service business. But prove to yourself that you can run a business first, even if it is a side hustle that is making, I don't know, $1,000 a month or whatever. But learn the ropes, like learn the system that you need to have around you, learn how you're going to get customers, etc. And once you have all of those, then think about, okay, is this becoming big enough that I'm willing to jump on it? And that's what I mean by more calculated risks, right? Because when I was younger, I just jumped headfirst into entrepreneurship. And let's be honest, that wasn't a very optimal way to do it. Like, I could have learned a lot more by diversifying my persona, and then shifting the diversification, the portfolio towards more entrepreneurship over time, than what I did, which meant that I had a significant financial hit, which I was able to weather, but a lot of people can't. So 100% start from something on the side first, and of course, like, at some point, you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're not putting all of your focus on something. But if it is de-risked and you're seeing that it is generating revenue and it can become bigger, then that's a good bet to just shift all of your focus or most of your focus, or just shift the portfolio around. But definitely, a black and white, all or nothing thinking is something I suffer with, and a lot of people do suffer from. So I would definitely encourage people to really go back to thinking, why do I have the impulse to do this? Is there a different way to do it, etc.? If anybody is interested, I'm happy to share some prompts with you that I use to control my impulses as well.
That's very, very interesting. Exactly. I remember it was 2017 when I started my first trial of startup, etc. And it was like, God, I know everything.
Yeah.
And I make mistake, never. It's not going to happen. But I started making a lot of them as soon as I started making my hands dirty. So that's the main important question. So, well, I have something, I have experience, and that's you perform well based on how good you are, how you have filled the gaps in yourself. As soon as you start making your hands dirty, you start understanding where are the gaps and what do you need to learn. And it's not something, yeah, people don't need to be scared, but you need to work on them. I mean, there are nowadays, we have a lot of resources, we had a lot of mentorship programs. And of course, I know in your LinkedIn, you have a link people can book and talk to you. That's insane, the amount of time you have dedicated to this. And I really enjoyed the part that when you ask the question, one of them is, you want to teach me something? You want to, and that's
Yeah.
really interesting. And I really encourage people to do that because that would be source of a lot of inspiration. Very beautiful, very beautiful. I'm a fan of that.
Thank
So
you.
I hope actually our audiences also enjoy that. And please feel free to make your comments and questions in the chat now, and the later in the video. We'll be happy to get back to them. Okay, let's switch to the second part of our conversation. What you're working as one of the things that you're working on, because you are doing a lot of things, and that's your curiosity and research you are participating in, which is about how about the AI as the teamwork? What's that about?
Yeah, definitely. Like as I said, like one of the big components of what we're trying to do is to stay ahead of the game, um, in terms of where AI is going, right? And if you look at what is going on today, at least in the software engineering side, we're seeing that there are, very good coding agents that are available, but most of them are like a very good junior developer that has infinite recall and infinite patience to figure things out, right? And we are all using them extensively, as sort of a co-pilot that sits on my desktop and takes care of a lot of things. I'm personally essentially bringing a lot of my business operations, like marketing, sales activities, also to that setting, not only the coding part. So if you look at the dotted line, like, we got here from where, the very basic chat GPT was at the end of 2022 to today in 2 to 3 years, right? Like this is a crazy rate of change. And if we just look at the same gradient, it is very, very imaginable that within the next 2 to 3 years, these systems are going to be so good that I no longer look at them as this over enthusiastic junior developer or junior assistant on my desktop, but rather a teammate that I can collaborate with. As I said, like I'm already using workflows that act like coaches for me. Like I recently participated in sort of a group coaching session where they taught us a bunch of things. And before that session, I just grabbed their website and material and put it in my workflow building system and asked it to create a workflow that coaches be like they would at the session. And the amount of insight that I got from that process when the AI coached me was honestly more than what I got in the group setting. Okay. Because, and think about it, like it was a setting where I didn't feel insecure, to be very transparent about what I was afraid of. So I talked very openly, and AI just used the material that I gave it to coach me, to ask me questions, to guide me through my thought process, and challenge my assumptions. And so, like at the end of the session, I was like, "Oh my god, I have some very interesting insight to act on now." And so, when I look at the dotted line from this to 3 years from now, imagine what will happen. Like, essentially, these systems are going to feel like they are our partners in business, there are partners in thought, there are partners in engineering. And for somebody like me who builds these systems and is very comfortable with interacting with them, it's a very different story than probably the rest of the population, like somebody who's counting on whatever way it is that they're working today in their corporate job, right? So the question of what happens from an organizational psychology point of view when we get to a point where these things are seen as teammates, like would people start feeling like, oh, I have to sabotage this, otherwise it's going to put me out of my job? Or are they going to say, oh my god, I love it, I can do my job so much better, how can I collaborate with this thing more, right? Like those are the two scenarios that are very likely to happen. So which of the, and how can we design systems from a technical point of view, but also from a social science point of view? How can we design systems that optimize for the better outcome, the one where humans and machines actually coexist and cohabit and co-create, right? So those are a lot of interesting questions that I think are very near term. Like we have to start answering these questions like right now, because otherwise in 3 years it will be too late. And that's a significant portion of my time is just spent on thinking about that.
Very interesting. So I think what you are talking about are mostly, so first of all, that should add a new angle to what we are doing. By far, if you want to look how AI and human relationship between AI and human, for a while it has been like human in the loop for a lot of AI algorithms and applications, and then okay, human-centered AI with a lot of ethical considerations. But I think that's beyond that. I mean, not only one angle is not only in terms of design, we need to consider this new angle, but also in terms of human, also we need to think about that. So how do you think about that? I mean, uh, in terms of the design side, would
Yeah.
it be new areas? I mean, ethical AI bias, like explainability. We should go beyond, far beyond that.
Uh, I think so. I think there will be a significant system level change that will happen at some point. An example that I really like is the invention of steam machine, right? Like when in the industrial revolutions, when we had, like usually when we had a steam machine, sorry, invention of electricity is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
When we had steam machines, we had factories that were very circular. Like there was a steam machine in the middle, and everything arranged themselves around that steam machine because that was the source of energy, right? And as soon as electricity replaced that, factories became very decentralized. You know, they were all over the place, and because that constraint was removed, right? Like you no longer needed to be very close to the source of energy because energy was distributed everywhere equally, and you could be, you know, lay out things in a more efficient way, etc. Right? Um, some One of my collaborators actually sent me a podcast about invention of refrigeration, which did something very similar. Like before that, like food, you know, meat or whatever, had to travel, like milk, right? For milk, you had to travel the cow a significant distance, you know, milk them and put it in a jar so that you can put it in. But when refrigeration became a thing that you put it on the cars, that problem was removed. Like, you know, there was a system level change that happened there. So there are a lot of examples that have happened in history where all of a sudden a technology appears that completely removes a constraint that we have arranged ourselves around it. And for example, you know, to present day, a lot of our society is around knowledge work, which is essentially a person wearing a suit, showing up to work, typing things on laptop all day and leaving, right? So now imagine that machines take that over completely. What happens? Like what happens to the meaning that people have? What happened to, you know, commercial? Like we saw that during COVID too. Like, you know, the need for commercial real estate all of a sudden became questionable and the society was going crazy, right? So now think about how this will go further when we have very cognitively capable entities that are not humans in the mix who can work 24/7 at probably a fraction of cost of a human. So now what's going to happen to the society? Like, how are we going to organize ourselves? And I'm not talking about ethical or social aspects. I'm talking about even like a strictly work, right? A strictly knowledge work. Uh, there has to be a different way. Like the corporate structure, I think in the next few years is going to be completely questioned. Like, is this the right way to organize ourselves to work? Or is there a different way to do that? Because that constraint of a human showing up at a place and doing things on a computer is completely challenged, right? Like that can be done completely differently now. So there are a lot of questions like that that I think will of course have environmental implications. Of course, will have societal implications, but from an economical point of view, I think we need to get ahead of what are the right organizational structures that probably are more gigified with human and machine resources available to them and probably without even physical realization like a corporate location, right? Like what does that look like? How do they work? How do they assign resources, etc., etc.? I think we don't have any good questions about sorry, we don't have any good answers. We don't even know what questions to ask yet. So I think we are just starting to formulate, okay, what are even the right questions to ask?
Very interesting. And so, what do you think is the situation? What is the reaction of the science and research and engineering, etc., to this challenge? That should be something a lot of researchers have started working on. I mean, what do you think? What do you think should be done? I mean, should it be encouraged by? Should it be platform be prepared to facilitate those tests? What do you think should be provided to because everybody is excited about bringing AI to something,
Yes.
but I'm not sure how much people also are excited about thinking
Yeah.
about this question.
No, 100%. I mean, obviously there is work that is being done because I'm not the first person who, has thought about this. Like this is a major concern. I think maybe I'm a little more. Um, I don't want to say optimistic or pessimistic or anything like that. I'm a little more. I'm thinking a little more about it. I think it is very near to us. Like it is in very near future. Uh, than what most other people are thinking. Like they're probably estimating. Like a lot of people are also distracted by this whole AGI thing. I think way before AGI becomes problematic, what I just talked about will become problematic, right? Like we will have agents that are very cognitively capable. Maybe they're not AGI as per definition, but they are capable. Like they can disrupt systems, they can disrupt organization that we have now. Then what? Like what can we do about it? And a lot of people who are researching this kind of thing are either treating it as very very toy models, like, oh, let's consider that jobs are a collection of tasks that are independent of each other and estimate how many of these will be automated by AI and figure out what will happen to these jobs, right? Like that's the level of logic they're applying, which I think is completely short-sighted. Alternatively, a lot of researchers are uh, treating AI as a fairy dust, as my collaborator calls it, which is they just grab a static system and then throw AI in and say, oh, this is the impact that AI will have in the system. While the reality is, as I said, like I think AI will just redefine systems, right? Like exactly like electricity did to a steam engine run factories. Like it is going to completely create a new organization. Now what? Like what is going to happen in that organization when that organization becomes the commonplace form of work for us? So the way we are approaching it is that we are just going back to the drawing board and say, okay, let's simulate this. Let's imagine that these systems are the first citizens, like just from day one, no constraints about how work is done today. We have human workers and we have machine workers. We're going to throw them into a simulation environment and ask them to work with each other, and maybe give them not like super sophisticated tasks, but tasks that we can model and measure and see what kind of collaboration patterns emerges, what kind of conflict pattern emerges, and out of those try to start making some postulates about what might happen in 2 or 3 years, because that's a lot more realistic. Like it allows for the system to self-organize around something new that doesn't currently exist or is not constrained by the existing. And of course, like then from there we have to map it into the reality, because ultimately it's a simulation. But I think that will inform a lot how these systems might behave. And I know some of the big labs are also doing similar things. Like the economic impact of these systems is a very commonplace question to be asked. But I think a lot of people are just doing the bare minimum rather than, oh my God, this is urgent. We just have to work. We have to put all of our resources and work on this right now. And I think that's a mistake. Like I think many more people should invest in investigating this. But I hope that we can at least have a contribution research-wise in terms of where this is going.
Very, very good, very interesting. Yeah, we can see some sign of that. People, I mean, different products, different research projects, etc., started doing that. Like recently, FIFA has revealed a new presenter in the FIFA events, which is called ISON. That's
Mm,
a, so that would be situation. So how
right,
others will interact with this AI presenter, and also
right.
how that AI presenter will work. And yeah, so how about the so I don't want to finish this part because that's still interesting to me. Should we slow down the things to be able to figure that out, or should we continue? Because Elon Musk for a while was saying, "Come on, slow down the AI," because we don't know where it is going.
I mean, theoretically, that's a good idea, but in reality, let's be honest, that's not going to happen, right? And when we say slow down, who's going to enforce it and which parts of the globe are going to stick to it, right? Even if the Western society decides to do that and stick to it, the Eastern side might not. and or might actually use that opportunity to go much faster, right? So I think theoretically that's a good idea to slow down to figure things out. But I'm very disappointed that some major figures are calling for that, although they know much better than you and I that it is a completely impractical proposal, right? I think they're doing it for
Yeah,
attention and marketing reasons more than like somebody who really wants a practical solution to the problem, to the danger that exists, will probably invest a significant amount of money in creating guardrails, creating alignment type of systems, creating governance type of systems, doing the type of research we are doing, which is, okay, let's be honest and acknowledge that this is going to be a system level change. Then what are those systems going to be potentially? Because it is emergent. Like, we don't know a very cognitively capable entity when it is added to a system. It is going to disrupt the system. We know that. But what are the potential outcomes? What are the new organizational equilibriums that might exist? And what do each of those mean for us? And how can we design systems in a way, again, like from a social and technical point of view, in a way that we go more towards the better outcomes than the ones that are probably more dangerous and problematic?
yeah. That's the matter of thinking more and acting more also. Very interesting. So the other side of the coin is human. I mean, at the at the moment, with a lot of conversation about meta level skills, softer skills, etc., still as human, we are struggling with a lot of these skills. So the question is, interacting with AI in the way that we are talking about now would require understanding more type of skills or even maturing in the previous skills we are talking about. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that the question of what would be the role of humans in the new organizational equilibrium is definitely an interesting question, and I don't think we have many good answers. Um, Again, like I think that's one of the questions that we don't even know what the right questions to ask are yet. But I can tell you what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do at least, right? So I think from what I'm seeing, obviously the problem solving and critical thinking skills are becoming more and more important, because anything that is downstream from that, like coding, writing, etc., in knowledge work, is becoming more and more streamlined and automated and possible to do with tools that are available to us. So the part that most of these tools fall apart are, was there some sort of reasoning and critical thinking involved in this that adapts it to the nuances of the real world that we exist in, right? So that part is definitely something that humans have to do a lot more. If you're a human and your claim to fame is, oh, I can write beautiful code, I have bad news for you. But if you are a human that your claim to fame is, I have very clear thinking process that I can use to solve very complicated software problems, and the downstream impact of that is that I can write good code as an artifact, as a symptom, as an outcome, then you probably are going to flourish in this, right? Like you're probably going to be really good at the future that is coming. So of course, like all of that is also being challenged by the reasoning models that we are training and such. But I think there's always the opportunity for humans to coexist and collaborate with these, cognitively capable systems, if we get into the right mindset and design the right systems with the right guardrails and alignments and all of those things that I talked about. So I think the most important skill is, clear thinking, problem solving. I think an area that AI will significantly struggle with for the foreseeable future is going to be exploration. So one of the definitions of AGI that I really like is the uh, data efficient adaptability, which means that if I have not trained the AI on a particular task, how much new data do I need to show it to learn that new task, right? Humans are very good at it, right? if I'm generally trained and I don't know, 20-something-year-old human and maybe older, I might not be trained in carrying out a particular task, but show me 5 examples of it, and I can kind of start wrapping my head around it. But that's not true about AI at all. Like essentially, AI needs a lot of data to start learning that task. So that means that, and there is no immediate ideas around. Even the reasoning that machines are doing today is very, very data heavy. Like you have to feed them so much data for them to be able to reason. So they're doing the mechanics of the reasoning, not the emergent reasoning that humans can do based on very small amount of data. So I don't exactly know what this means, but what it means is that the explorative type of work that we do, or the explorative part of the work that jobs that we do, are probably going to be safe. So starting to try to figure out what those components are and how can we get much better at them, probably going to preserve a role for us in the future that is coming.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. So, interesting question here would be, so most probably, yeah. So one angle that I'm thinking could be the challenges, okay, in terms of the engineering and scientific AI science part. So we know exactly, I hope we know exactly what AI is about, and we try to understand how the systematic system level design should be changed. But in terms of the like life science and human science, social science and stuff, they have I don't know what is the environment that they have a lot of like no to AI, etc. I hope they start working on that. So that's a very big question. I don't know how far they have gone. Have they noticed that problem? Have you come across anything at all to see at that side they have started doing something?
Yeah. Um, I mean, well, to be very honest and clear, we don't really know how the AI systems currently work, right? Like they're largely massive neural nets sitting in massive data centers, feeding on a ginormous amount of data, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a field in AI called mechanistic interpretability that is trying to use physics-like exploration to try to say, okay, this system exists and it works. I want to use like physical thinking, for example, to explore why it works. So they do like physics-like experiments on these neural networks to try to understand, oh, I think it is doing this, like the same way that we do physics experiments on natural things, right? So they're trying to do the same type of thing, and it's called mechanistic interpretability. And I think that's a field that needs way more investment because it is very important. Like it will help us actually understand what's going on in these systems. And outside of that, I don't know. Like I don't have a lot of hope for things like interpretability and explainability because most of those are post hoc in a sense that they allow the system to do something and then try to explain what it did, which is necessary for some business use cases. Like if an LLM rejects a loan, like we should be able to explain to the customer, probably the system thought this, right? Like that is even mandated by regulation in some cases. But those are more like superficial, lipstick on pig kind of scenarios. Like I think the more fundamental thing is mechanistic interpretability type of scenarios, and outside of that, other types of scientific explorations, they all have a multifaceted relationship to AI. A lot of them do use AI to do research, like deep research type of systems, right? A lot of them, like I know in chemistry and biology, this is very commonplace that people are pursuing self-driving labs, which means labs that explore scientific literature, come up with a set of hypotheses, send those to a set of robots that execute the experiment in the lab, collect the data, bring it back, and iterate, right? So that's a 24/7 grad student. So that's been happening even before LLMs. It will probably continue happening after for the foreseeable future. So physics, for example, has been used in AI in cosmology and many other areas, condensed matter physics, for a very long time. So I mean, the two fields, AI and all of the above, have been interacting. AI is a tool ultimately, right? Like it is a scientific endeavor, but ultimately it is also a tool that is used in many other fields, like mathematics has been, statistics has been. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I don't know, I have a lot of predictions in terms of what will happen there, uh, but there's definitely a lot of interactions. And I'm hoping that things like mechanistic interpretability, where it brings in the thought process from a different area into AI, and those kind of interdisciplinary interactions are the ones that are probably going to provide the most insight about how we should develop these technologies as we go forward.
Very interesting. And most probably will face with new roles in organization like like AI collaboration coach or something like that for people to understand how to work with AI agents, etc.
um, that particular example, in my mind, is probably unlikely, because I think one significant thing that LLMs have done is that they have given language to machines. So the machine can talk back to you. And most probably, the machines are going to be much better coaches in the next few years than humans would be in terms of how you should work with them. Where I do see some interesting things around the topic of, for example, like there's a big concern in the job market around, if AI takes over the junior level jobs, then juniors can never become seniors, right? So, and that's a gap that is going to continuously grow. So I do see an opportunity for the same AI tools that take over junior jobs to become coaches for junior people. So the junior person doesn't start from a junior job and whatever, like do the mundane, but rather they start from a junior position, and an AI coach will essentially help them. And the beginning of that exists in coding. Like a lot of us who are not coders by day job, I as a CEO and product person, that's not my day job to code, but I spend a lot of time coding now because I have agents that can do that. And as a cross pollination process, I am learning a lot more about coding, right? So I can imagine that can be turned into gyms, like mental gyms, for people where they learn new skills using the same systems that have taken their jobs, and then they become senior to the level of critical thinking that is necessary to take on senior jobs. So a very interesting example that I was recently thinking about is that when physical labor was removed, sorry, the need for physical labor to generate revenue and income for people was removed from the society in, I don't know, 80s or whatever. um, then immediately the society reacted by having physical gyms, like where you go to run and lift. And so will we have a mental gym, a cognitive gym? Because the need to do cognitive work, mental work, to make money is being removed in the next few years potentially. So would there be a bunch of businesses who are like, oh, we are a gym for your software skills, come here, and we have coaches and etc., etc., and you can practice and get better software engineer, not because you needed to make money. The same way that we don't go to weightlifting gym to make money, we go there actually pay money so that we get fitter, happier, feel better about ourselves, etc., etc., pursue some meaning that we have. So I think the same kind of thing might start appearing in the cognitive realm. I don't know what that means, but I see it coming.
It is a good, it was a very good analogy, but I don't think that would be as simple as like the physical gym it was, because it was much easier problem. We don't have that much activity. Okay, let's create somewhere people can do a little bit of activity. But nowadays you can see even you are saying, okay, I have attended actually a coaching session, etc. I collected the framework, put it in the AI, and it helped me much better. But that's a very realistic scenario. I mean, if you look at the people, so a lot of people from government I know, and a lot of bodies, companies, etc. Still, they are looking at how to work with Copilot. how to work
Yes.
with ChatGPT. I mean, we are engineers, we are scientists. For us,
Yep.
that's like piece of cake. But still, there are a lot of educated people.
Yep.
Still, they don't know what does it mean. I
Yes.
occasionally receive messages asking me crazy questions, like specialist doctors. They tell me,
Yep.
"Can you explain to me what is Bitcoin? Can you in a simple language?" So,
Right.
okay,
Right.
that's like 10-minute audio recording on WhatsApp to send them to explain what does it mean. So I
Right.
mean, that's a long, long way to go to get to the point that actually we can create agents, or we can create like self we can create self enablement. I mean,
Yep.
to be able, still people cannot use it. I mean, I was about thinking to do something,
Yep.
and if I wanted to hire someone to help me making that decision,
Yep.
apart from the money that I needed to pay to that expert person and the time he wanted to spend actually to help me. But still, that was a matter of question. I wasn't that mature to ask good question. But I spent one Sunday afternoon 4 hours talking to AI, and wow, wow, it helped me grow to ask much better questions. But
Yep.
I don't know how many percentage of, so we have a long, long way to go. I mean,
Absolutely.
in, so what's the reaction? I mean, if we talk about the agents, I mean, okay, so we generate agents to help in terms of sale. What is people's in organizations reaction to those agents? Like, look at them as competitor, look at them as someone like jealousy,
Yep.
etc. comes in.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we are doing the research we are doing. At least the way we are treating it is, I think, at least in the near term, in the 1 to 2 years, right? I don't know what happens after that. Like, things are moving so fast that it's just completely crazy to even talk about a year from now. But, at least in the next year or so, I think it will continue to significantly depend on how the organization behaves in general. Like, for example, if you're a salesperson in an organization that has always treated you like a cost center, then this new thing shows up that is cheaper than you and works 7 times better than you. Of course, you should be worried because the organization looks at you as a cost center and it is always trying to reduce cost. Now, compare that to an organization that treats its employees, with respect, and it always is trying to figure out what's a path for growth. Like, even if your job is being eliminated, how can I train you so that you take on your next role, right? How can I set a path of growth for you rather than just looking at you? Okay, you are the $70,000 cost item, so what can I do with you, right? Like, the difference between these two organizations is drastic. So I expect a person that is in the first organization should be very worried and probably should change their organization sooner than later, not even because of AI, because that's a horrible work situation, but an organization that is all about empowerment, enablement, etc. When they introduce these systems, they probably can do it in a gentle way. That also sets up the staff to become more capable of doing more. Like, if you're a salesperson and 90% of your work is being taken away by AI, is the organization going to help you use that other 90% to do, I don't know, some engineering, some product work, spend way more time with your customers, or whatever else that the organization needs to help everybody be a bigger pie type of organization? Or, so any long story short is that, at least the clients we work with, we always have this conversation with them that, you have to be careful about how you roll this out. It has to be socialized. We have to talk to them to understand what their concerns are. We have to articulate to them what happens to the 90% of the bandwidth that will open up. What is your plan? Like, you have to be very upfront about these conversations, because people, even if they're not talking about it, they're thinking about it, right? So I think it really depends on the organizational leaders and the culture they have tried to create, uh, that determines. And of course, that's one of the factors. I'm sure there are other factors, but I think that's one of the dominant factors that determines how people feel about these systems.
Very interesting. And even in terms of the education, I mean, apart from people who are working corporate jobs, etc., in terms of education, like the PhDs, masters, and so on and so forth in near future, we need to change a lot of syllabuses because the way they create these things, the way they work with these things, and so on and so forth. That would be a very interesting point. How do you think about the future? So everybody's obsessed. So before that, I want to say that's kind of a new COVID without the mask. It is
Yep.
going everywhere. People
Yes.
don't see it, don't feel it, don't get sick about it, but
Hmm.
suddenly they will be smashed
Yep.
with that. So
Yes.
yeah. So how do you see that? So nowadays everybody's obsessed about AI agent or agentic AI. Do you see that's the shouldn't be the ultimate things? So we should be waiting for something maybe bigger or different or something.
I mean, I was listening to a podcast about AGI, and what they were saying is that probably the calculator in the 50s looks like AGI to people of the time, right? And, 3 years ago, we were calling LLM APIs where we had to write very complicated, long, structured prompts to get anything meaningful from. And today, I literally tell my agent, check my financial model, see if how we should respond to this customer who just sent me this email, and it just goes out and does all of that for me because I have set it up to do so. And sometimes I get mad at it when it makes a mistake, right? Like this thing that 3 years ago was completely magical is happening today, and I'm getting mad at it. So I think what I'm trying to say is that the post is shifting constantly. Like our expectation adapts very quickly to the toys that we have, and very quickly gets greedy and is like, oh, what else can we do, right? So I think where we are going is that these agents are going to become more and more capable. I think they're here to stay because the definition of them is very fuzzy, and it's just evolving, and every day we are trying to do more things with them. So I'm not sure, maybe we'll come with a different name in a year or two or whatever, but I think the concept is going to continue, like being able to have, as I said, these very cognitively capable things, entities that sit right at your palm of hand, and they get things done for you, is going to continue happening. And then the big question is, what am I going to do with the bandwidth that is opening up for me? For me, as a very small business, my goal is to get to multi-million-dollar revenue, to tens of millions of dollar revenue, without having to increase the size of my team, by just using these systems more effectively, right? So can everybody start thinking about, okay, what are you going to do with your extended bandwidth now, right? Like that's the big question that I think everybody should start thinking about.
Very good. Okay, so with all these hypes and all these temperatures, etc., as a human, I want to wrap the episode slowly. So I want to slow down, like running on the treadmill, and then in the last 5 minutes, you want to slow down slowly the speed.
Yeah.
So as a human, with all these hypes and this stress, and sometimes it is stress because you feel like if I'm behind, the FOMO will jump up and
Yeah.
will show itself. So as a human, how do you live as a scientist in this era, as a business person, as a scientist and product person? So what kind of meta skills help you? I mean, in your personal life, I know
Yeah.
you're with your community, perhaps it will help you a lot in terms of like getting stress goals and so on.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that aspect.
I run this thing that you probably have seen called AI Walks.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, like about maybe 2 months ago now, the public library invited me to go there and tell people about it. And
Wow.
I'm in this big room with 15 other similar organizations, and all of them are like, yeah, we help you learn LangChain, and we help you learn Python, and blah blah blah. The other one is like, we help you learn the statistics. And people, like, I'm at the very end of the room, and people get to me and they look at my sign that says AI Walk, and they're like, I'm confused, what does this mean? And I'm like, we go out, walk, and talk about AI. And they're like, they're just literally confused for a minute. They're like staring at me and thinking, like, one of them literally said, like, we don't have screens, like we don't type anything. And I'm like, no, the whole point is to get you away from the screen. And another occasion, somebody was like, would you be upset if people come to these walks and don't talk about AI at all? I'm like, not at all. Like, my whole point is to get people away from screens, from the stressors, from the concerns, and get them into the nature, get them together and talk. And people who are coming out to these are so appreciative. They're like, oh my God, this is such a great. And I'm like, I'm literally asking you to come out and walk. Like, I'm not doing anything, right? And like, the fact that people are so starved for that kind of thing tells me that we need more things like that. We need to bring people together. And the way I'm tying it actually to AI stuff a little more is that, as I said, like, I'm creating a lot of coaching workflows for myself, because I do get a lot of benefit from exploring things that don't allow me to live my full life, the mental blocks and such, and the interpersonal conflicts. So it's super helpful. But also, what I have found is that people have a hard time relating to others, especially us nerds. So I'm creating this workflow that helps people think about how they want to present themselves. Because a lot of the time on the walks, I ask people what their story is, and everybody is like confused. They don't know how to answer that question. And then they're like, do you mean what is my job? And they start telling me what they do at work. And I'm like, no, like, your story as a person is much more than that. Like, tell me that story. So I'm trying to build like some AI tools that help people articulate those, like explore those things first, hopefully get some insight for themselves, and then in human interactions present that to others. And I think that creates more deeper human connections. That is what we need more than anything else these days.
Awesome. Yeah. I relate to it a lot because for the last few years I've experienced that myself. I don't do that in the community, but I have a spreadsheet with
Right.
a lot of walking habits. And last year I could walk 1,300 kilometers, which helped me hugely, hugely. Yeah, and that's really pity, as you said, when you ask someone, a junior or mid-level or even senior person, to talk about yourself, what's your story, and they get what? So still agents hasn't conquered everything, but it seems like we have already given up on everything. So yeah, that's very interesting. And have you seen stories of people this has transformed their life without putting
The
their name
walks.
here? Yeah, this AI works.
Uh, I don't know. Like, I mean, the broader community that I have created, since 2018, like, a lot of people come back to me and say, they owe their career to me because they've made, people that hired them and people that they hired and the companies that they co-founded together, etc. So I think I strongly believe that when you bring people together in an environment that is supportive and positive, and allow them to give them just enough structure so that it's not complete chaos, they figure it out and they do interesting things together. So I think that, and that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, that a lot of people consider me a community builder, and I never completely related to that. But I think I recently started thinking that what I really enjoy creating is spaces where people can be together, like either in the virtual world or real world, where people can be together. And once you bring curious people together and sort of force them to talk to each other, then always interesting things happen. Like, we've seen that in the history. I have seen that personally firsthand. It has happened to me. It has happened to people I brought together. Yeah, and the hope is that I can continue doing that.
Super interesting. I think that was a very good kind of wrap up for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed, everybody. So any last word you want to say before we close it?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me. As Ali Reza said, I have an AMA on my calendar. If you're watching this later and you're interested in anything I said, I have an open door policy. Reach out, more than happy to discuss. You can ask me questions. You can teach me something, as Ali Reza said. I don't promise to have answers, but hopefully I can help you ask better questions.
It has been always inspiring, and of course, very happy to have you on the episode. We learned a lot from you. It was a very interesting conversation to me. I hope everybody has enjoyed that. I know Amir is really generous, so feel free to jump on his LinkedIn page and book a slot if you want to talk to him. Okay, very good. Everybody have a very good time. Talk to